welcome. We're gonna just have some fun today. And the reason I did this is it was sent to me and I just thought it was so pretty and it's very simple. So y'all can do this. I'm gonna go through the directions. I'll have them posted up there. So just if you think, oh, I can't do that, just keep listening to it. The beauty of YouTube is you can just hear it over and over again. And I really believe that every time you get there, every time you hear it, it'll just get easier and easier. So that's the goal. I've got my hair up so you can see the double collar. And we're calling this Mercedes double collar because that's who sent it to me. So I actually searched for several of them and I found this first picture. And what I want you to look at is the double collar is a lot of styling. I want you to look at the difference between the two layers. Some are wider, some are narrower, some are thinner. All of those options are yours. I'm going to tell you what I did, but don't feel like you can't change it up a lot. This is the blouse pattern that I started with. It does need to be a shawl collar blouse. So I started with 611. Maggie's blouse is what I started with. And I started with a fabric 5092. And the reason I did this is I wanted to do another layer of not just the double collar, but I wanted to do a bias front. And I thought it'd be pretty to have the lines because this is a 100% cotton, but it's linear. As you can see, 5092. I wanted to be able to take advantage of all those in the layers. And then as I got playing with it, I thought, boy, wouldn't it be cool to like put them crisscross, put them different directions. And then I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun to pipe one layer in? But anyway, my job is to give you the information. Your job is to take it next level. All right, so let's go over the information and let's make sure you understand how to do it. I'm going to start with the pattern again because I want to do just real basic. And I want to make sure that you can get this. Now I went ahead and I did a little sample and I did it with different colors because mine's all tone on tone. It might be a little harder to see. So understand that what we're going to do is we're going to make an undercollar. That's not in the pattern. I'm going to show you how to make it. But that's 2 layers. You sew 2 layers right sides together. Turn it, you sew this end and this end. Turn it to the right side. This is raw. And then you're going to insert it into a seam that's made. If you go back to, we're not going to put it up again, but if you go back to those original 2 pictures, and if you look really closely at one, you're going to see that there's a seam coming underneath the collar. You can't see it because it's turned back, but right in here there's a seam. You can see it right in here if you look real closely at that photo. So that's the secret in doing this, is that on the, I'm going to take you big picture and then we'll take you back. On the big picture is on the blouse itself, you're actually going to cut a seam that goes from about 1 inch here down to about the top of the button. You're going to cut a seam, you're going to literally cut it apart, add seam allowance to both sides. You're going to put it back together, but when you go to put it back together, you're going to insert this undercollar, I'm calling it, in between. And that's all it is, because the upper collar is designed one way and the undercollar is designed to be different, and it's really that easy. It's that easy. So now let's go back. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call this the upper collar and I'm going to call this the undercollar, just so that we can make it a little bit easier. All right, so in order to make it, and again I'm using 611 as a base because a lot of it's styling. I took the front and I took it up 2 inches. So in other words, this is actually where the original collar goes. So I actually increased this up 2 inches and then I narrowed it. And I narrowed it 1/2 inch. So I took it up 2 inches, took it right to the same center back seam, and then narrowed it 1/2 inch down to here. So that gave me where the first one was going to do, and I did it to the front. And then I did it to the front facing, because remember that these 2 are the same. So you can see there's my little addition to the front facing also. I went 2 inches up and then I trimmed it off. Also, what you want to remember is that when I did my undercollar, this one, I did it just like the pattern, except keep in mind, it's only this little piece. That's all it is these 2 little pieces. The blue, the navy, is the same as the orange. It's all the blouse front. And the front facing comes around. So the front facing is the muslin. The only change I made in that was I brought it up just like I brought the blouse up. Okay, so let's look at the changes. I've got them diagrammed out, and I did them in different colors, okay? So let's go through them. Number one, you're gonna cut it apart. You're gonna cut the pattern, the front, whatever cup size you're using, into two pieces and go about 1 inch from the back. It doesn't really make any difference because when this folds back, see, as long as that cut line is underneath the fold line, it doesn't really matter where it is. I did it 1 inch from center back, 1 inch from the edge, and then I did it down to where this comes in, where it starts to go into the button front. Okay, so that's where I cut it apart, and I added seam allowance to both sides because when you sew it back together, you want to make sure that it's the same as what it was beforehand. Okay, then number two is you're going to raise the shawl collar edge up and narrow it. And again, I raised it up 2 inches, I narrowed it 1 inch so that you could see the difference between these two. But again, those are variables, it doesn't make a difference, okay? And then that will be the upper collar, and then I traced off, I just made this new part and I kind of followed the under collar on that. You're gonna make 2 layers, okay? And then you make this additional piece by cutting 2 layers. Okay, so there's 2 layers and you're completely creating this on your own. This is in the pattern, you just cut it and add seam allowance. The front facing's in the pattern, but this little piece that you're making right here, this under collar, is not in the pattern. Okay, easy enough? And it's fun, just play with it. And I promise, there's some times where I sit down, I think, I'm not sure how to do this, and I just sit down and I go through it, and as I'm going through it, oh my goodness, it wasn't near as hard as I thought it was going to be. It's so much easier than I think sometimes it's going to be. Okay, then we're going to do the sewing direction, and we're going to put these up, and we're going to show you how to do these. So just, like I said, cut the pieces, do step 1, and then let's go sew. Okay, so you're going to make the small collar by putting the wrong sides together. You're going to sew the outside edges right here, not this long edge, just these 2 outside, and you go sew over and then cross the direction, fold it, turn it, press it, okay? I only did half, obviously you're going to do both halves. Then you're going to take the navy, and it's all one color, or maybe not, but the navy is part of the blouse front. That's the part you cut apart, added seam allowance, and you're going to put those back together, but the under collar now is going to be in between them. And you're going to put together the front with the under collar in that seam. In fact, it's everything. The only thing that's not going to be there is this the front facing. Then you're going to sew center back seams. You're just going to continue just with the regular pattern. Nothing else changes. So the only thing that changes is you're going to make the collar, you're going to insert it into the seam, and then you make the rest of the blouse. And nothing else is that big of a deal. So number 2 was insert the, in between the blouse cut lines, stitch the blouse back together as one piece. And number 3 is just to continue the guide sheet. Because my front is on a bias, it gives a little different effect. If you're gonna do a bias front, you'll need an extra yard of fabric, just FYI. Again, because of the linears, I wanted to place the lines of the collar. I placed the lines of the collar here along the lines of the fabric, but you could do fun things with that. Just be purposeful with that if you want to. This particular shawl collar lends itself to a plaid or a straight line because of the cut of the collar. If you're going to do a curve, then maybe not so. But also if you're going to do a bias front, you don't want to do a bias back. I did a straight back. I left the sides open here a little bit just to kind of give it a little casual feel. I did the regular 2-piece sleeve and then I just rolled them up just because, again, I wanted a more casual feel. I wanted a white blouse that I could just wear every day. So again, bias front, straight sleeve, and straight back. Don't try to do bias front and bias back, I guess is my message that I'm trying to send to you. And that's it. And that's it. It's just easy. It's fun. It'll take you a little while. It probably took me a couple hours, 2 hours to cut it out, figure it out. I was enjoying the whole entire process, so the 2 hours went by really quickly. And the goal is to have happy sewing from Silhouette Patterns.